Let's get into this video. What am I saying? Sexy. My hair looks huge. When did this happen? Got it. Hi everyone, my name is Hayley Mabry. I am a musical theatre performer and I've spent 3 years performing, living, working on cruise ships. Over that time I performed on 2 different cruise lines. My fiance has also performed on a couple as well. I feel like with our kind of combined knowledge, we do know a lot about cruise ship life, what it's like to be a crew member. So I wanted to kind of share a couple of things with you guys. Something that I always get asked is just like the general question, what is life like living on a cruise ship? And I always say, you know, it's so hard to actually understand exactly what it's like unless you've been there. But I want to kind of give you guys all these little tidbits, just little things that you wouldn't really think of or may not expect, just to kind of give you the best chance of understanding what it is like if you're someone that's considering doing it, if you're about to go start on a cruise ship contract, or if you're a cruise ship guest and you love seeing all like the ins and outs of the life of the crew, which I mean, I'm a very curious person. I definitely want to know, so I feel you there if that's you. For people that I chat to, generally the best way I can describe what it's like being on a cruise ship, if you haven't been on one before, essentially it's a combination between a super fancy, like not just 5-star, like 10 flipping stars hotel, resort with all the inclusive, you know, all that kind of stuff, a combination of a really fancy hotel and a Navy ship. That's kind of the best way I can explain when you're on the crew side of it anyway. That's really what I found that experience, because, you know, it is this amazing hotel. It's a place where people can go escape, enjoy the wonderful activities and food and things that it has to offer. However, you are on a boat in the middle of the ocean, so you do need extra safety things. You do need to be quite strict about some things to keep things safe, to keep things sanitary. So that's where like the Navy side of it comes in with the rules and regulations and all those kinds of things. Now, first things first. So for those that have never been on a cruise ship, if you have been on one before, you'll probably know this already. There are generally 2 separate areas on ships. There's areas called guest areas and there's crew areas. Okay, so guest areas obviously are where the guests are, that's where they can roam wherever they want, and the crew areas are where the crew live. Now, guests are not allowed in crew areas. However, some crew members are allowed in guest areas, but not all. It very much depends on your job, your station, what you do. So yeah, certain roles can't go into guest areas whatsoever. I was very lucky that I was able to go into guest areas, enjoy the restaurants, enjoy a lot of the activities as well. But there were still some things that even a crew member that can go into guest areas can't do. For example, I wasn't allowed to go into the casino. What else? Just can't be unruly. You've got to dress in a certain way, so we call it guest appropriate, is the clothes that you have to wear. So that's one of the main things. There's guest areas and there's crew areas. I will just say, crew areas can get wild. They can get absolutely wild. I mean, we do have rules that we have to follow. We can't go too wild, but crew know how to party. I'm just gonna say that. We get alcohol for very cheap. Hopefully I'm allowed to say that as well. We get alcohol for very cheap. We do work really hard during the day or the evening, whenever our shifts are, so that when we're off, when we're having party time, we want to go full out. And the cruise ships that I've been on anyway have always been really good about organising events. So they will organise massive parties, whether it is in the crew bars or sometimes on the ships that I've been in, once the guests have been asleep, we've been able to have a party, organise a party in one of the guest areas, whether it's you know, a lounge, or there was this big indoor pool area that we had parties in once. They were so fun, the pool ones, oh my gosh. But because, you know, we don't want to get in the way of the guests, we can only ever do that on certain ships when they're able to kind of lock it off from the guests. That didn't happen too often, but the crew parties, man, they are so fun. Now in the crew areas, we have a mess. So that is essentially a buffet. It's where we go to eat. That will be open for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and supper. Maybe afternoon tea and morning tea. It's not open 24/7. There's certain hours that you can go there and you can get food. So if you're hungry at the wrong time, you're a bit screwed. You need to really like think about the times that you want to eat. So we've got a mess. We've generally got a bar, maybe 2 bars. On most of the ships that I was on, there was a regular bar and then a smoking bar. What else? We've got a crew shop. We've normally got a library, an arcade where there's games. We normally have an outdoor area, so a crew deck is what it's called. Because obviously, if you're one of the crew members that can't go out into guest areas, or is too busy to get off the ship. Also guys, we don't actually have windows. Most people don't have windows in their cabins. In my last contract, I was very lucky to have a window in my cabin, but most people don't. So if you're really busy, you actually don't get to see the sun. So having that crew deck is so important, so we can actually get fresh air, breathe fresh air, get a little bit of vitamin D by sitting in the sun as well. The crew deck is super important. We also have a medical and a laundry as well, obviously so we can wash our own clothes, medical so we can go get stuff looked after. The medical on the ship is really good. When I injured my neck, which is a very specific neck injury, they were really good with helping me out. They did eventually have to go like send me off for separate CT scans and things like that, but I think they were actually able to give me an x-ray on the ship. I can't fully remember, but they're really well equipped on the ship to look after you, because obviously if you're in the middle of the ocean and something bad happens, they need to have like everything they need to help with an emergency. So the medical centre is really good. They also have seasickness tablets that they give out for free to the crew, just FYI. It's brilliant. Also, while we're talking about crew areas, so along a cruise ship, right, you've got this big long cruise ship. There is normally, on all the ships that I've been on anyway, what's it called, a corridor that goes all the way from the front of the ship to the end of the ship, and that is in guest areas. On the ships that I was on, we called it the I-95. I think the I-95 is like a big motorway in America or something like that. Anyway, it's called the I-95, and that essentially is like the major blood vessel of the entire ship. So that is where everything gets transported from one side to the other. So, you know, say for example, if the buffet is at the back of the ship up the top, they would take all the buffet food along the I-95, along that corridor, and then bring it up the elevator, right into the buffet. Or if the stage is at the front of the ship and they've got some lighting equipment they need to bring up there, they would take it all the way along the I-95, bring up the elevator, and there they go. If something's in the middle, same thing. It was just kind of, it's the way that they transport anything that's needed in the ship, whether it is food, whether it is laundry, whether it is medical equipment. Also, I don't know if this is a bit morbid, I might cut this out later, but if someone does pass away on the ship, often their body will get transported that way to the medical centre or to the morgue, wherever it is that they're storing them. That is really morbid, sorry about that guys. But there are certain rules. So like I said before, how we've got kind of elements of being in the Navy. I'm not saying we're actually like Navy people, I'll never be that cool. But we do have elements that make you feel like you're in the Navy with certain rules and things like that. So we're not allowed, in our crew cabins, we're not allowed to have any food unless it's fully like packaged. We're not allowed to have electrical goods. So the reason for this, I think, the reason for no food is because I believe we want to prevent rats coming and spreading on the ship. I'm pretty sure that's why. And the electrical goods, things like hair straighteners, curlers, kettles, we can't have things like that in our room because it's a fire hazard. Obviously, if we're on a cruise ship, fire is a really big thing we need to be aware of and make sure it does not happen because that would be bad, basically. So yeah, none of that. Also, when we're walking on the I-95, on that main corridor, we're not allowed to have, I call them thongs, but everyone else in the world calls them flip-flops, things that go on your feet. We're not allowed to wear thongs / flip-flops on the I-95 because there are so many things. There's so many like trolleys and carts and heavy things being carried back and forwards. It's a safety hazard, basically. If something dropped on your toe, might be gone. So you need to wear closed-in shoes at all times when you're on the I-95 as well. Now, I mentioned this very briefly before. When crew members go into guest areas, if there's someone that's allowed to go into guest areas, we do need to be dressed in a very specific way. Every cruise ship will have a standard, we call it a lookbook, but a standard of how you need to dress when you're in guest areas. So, I mean, if you've got a uniform, you just wear that. But if you're like me and didn't have a uniform, they've got very specific images, things to wear, things to not wear. Things to not wear are like ripped jeans, tiny short shorts, too much cleavage, things like that. You just want to be like smart, casual during the day, and then during the evening you need to be dressed up a little bit fancier. If it is we call it evening chic night or a formal night, then you need to dress super fancy as well. But if you are going to go work on a cruise ship, they will tell you all that. They'll kind of let you know specifically what their guidelines are. But you just want to be aware when you're in guest areas, look nice, don't look shabby, don't look like you've rolled around in the dirt, and you'll be fine. So another rule, when crew members are coming onto the ship, and I believe this counts for guests as well, there's certain things that you can't bring on. Alcohol, for example, you can't bring alcohol onto the ship. I don't know the reason for that. There must be a reason, something to do with like international something. Anyway, can't bring alcohol onto the ship. Can't bring, obviously, electrical goods onto the ship because they're not allowed in your room, so why would you bring them on? And there's something else. Oh, you can't bring food on unless it's packaged. Again, because you're not allowed that kind of food in your room, they don't want you to bring it on. So you can't bring, say, a box of fresh, hot chips, for example. That will get taken off you or get chucked in the bin. So when you're coming up to the ship, what you want to do is just eat as many as you can before they take it off you and throw it out. That's what I did every time. Okay, something else to be aware of, and this is a really, really big one for me, is Wi-Fi. Now, obviously, if you're working a cruise ship, most of you are going to be away from your partners, your families, your loved ones, your friends, so you need Wi-Fi to stay in contact with them. Now, on cruise ships, Wi-Fi is very, very expensive, so just prepare yourself for that first of all. Just prepare yourself and accept it. You know, if you wanna chat with your family, you're either gonna have to pay for the Wi-Fi or have like a roaming SIM in your phone that allows you to talk to them from wherever you are, from whatever country your cruise ship goes to. Just know that when you're in the middle of the ocean, your phone SIM won't work, or it will charge you a heck of a lot of money. I used to help out at the Wi-Fi stand, helping the guests with their Wi-Fi, and they would come to me complaining, saying they'd had like a $300 phone bill for one day, and it's because they were using their normal phone in the middle of the ocean. So please do not do that. You'll get charged so much money and the signal will be terrible anyway. Like it won't be worth it at all. You definitely use the Wi-Fi on the cruise ship. It's going to be expensive, but it's not going to be as expensive as using your phone signal in the middle of the ocean. So yeah, that would be another thing. Definitely make sure, if you can, that you get a SIM for your phone that will work in those countries. My first cruise ship contract, I didn't do that, and it meant that every time I was getting off the ship to go explore wherever we were, at that time we were in the Mediterranean, so you know, if I was scared to go very far from the ship because my phone didn't work. So I was really scared that I would get lost and then not be able to find my way back because I don't have Google Maps, I can't call a friend, and you're in a country where no one speaks English. So that's definitely something I learned from. If your ship is docking in Civitavecchia, which is kind of near Rome, so you want to catch the train and go into Rome, you want to have a phone that works just in case something happens, just in case, you know, the train that you plan to take doesn't actually stop there and you need to be able to get online to find another one, or if there's no trains coming, you're not going to make it back to the ship, you need to be able to call and let somebody know. I mean, if you can, just don't ever miss the ship. Make sure you get back to the ship on time or earlier if you can, because you'll probably lose your job if you're not on time. Like, simply put, just do not be late for the ship. So that's another thing as well. So when you're docked at the port, when the ship pulls into the port for the day, you know, on average, they'll probably be there between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. So they're gonna leave at 5 p.m. The crew all aboard will generally be around 4 p.m. So you wanna make sure you get there before 4 p.m. If you get there after 4 p.m., say 10 past 4, quarter past 4, you will get in trouble. Maybe fired, probably not fired if you're just 10 minutes late, but you will get sent to chat to the captain or chat to your manager, whoever it is. You just don't want to get in that situation. But if you get there past 5 p.m. after the ship's left, what they will do, from what I've heard anyway, is they will leave your passport with the port agent and they'll sail off. They won't pack up your stuff, they won't leave it out there for you, they'll just leave you your passport so you can leave the country, and that's it. And then you've just got to figure out how to catch up with the ship to get your stuff, and then you'll probably be fired and you'll probably be sent home. There have been times when that hasn't happened, you haven't been fired, but just don't get in that situation would be my biggest tip. Always be on time for the ship. Gosh, where was I? I got really sidetracked. Yeah, also getting a SIM for your phone. Really, really helpful. Changed my life, my second contract. It really, really did. Now, a question that I always find myself being asked is, do you feel the ship moving? I get asked this from guests, from people that are considering going to work on the ship, just from friends, from family. And the answer is most of the time no. Because these boats are so big, like they're huge, they're absolutely huge. They generally don't tend to move very much. They're also really designed, they've got stabilizers within them as well. They're designed to control the rocking as much as possible, so you don't really feel it. I have, of course, been on the ship when it has been really rocky, in a storm or something like that. Even then, mostly it's fine. Most of the time, 99% of the time, it's totally fine. I've maybe felt a little bit nauseous probably in 3 years, I reckon I felt nauseous 5 or 6 times. So not much at all. There was one crazy time that's gonna sound a little dramatic that was really, really rocky. And it was actually, it got to the point where it was so rocky that I didn't feel sick. I think maybe the adrenaline had cut in, like it kind of felt like we were on a ride or a roller coaster or something like that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Normally on those 5 or 6 times when it was quite rocky and I was feeling sick, I would just go lie down, like I wouldn't be able to do anything. But with this, I was walking around the ship, I was like, oh my gosh, whoa, I can feel the waves, it's so cool. Yeah, and that was really rocky. The grand piano was rolling across the stage. Up at the buffet, these piles of plates were just falling and smashing to the floor. That was very dramatic. That was very, very dramatic. That probably won't happen. I reckon that probably happens once every 10 years on a cruise ship, but I happened to have that time actually on my first contract. But I didn't feel sick. And you know, even though it was crazy rocky, you still felt safe. Like I didn't at any time feel unsafe. So it was totally fine. It was quite fun. It was actually really, really fun. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to share with you guys as well is something really cool that I had no idea about this before I started working on cruise ships. Before I get into that, I know this has been like such a random hodgepodge collection of different things to tell you, but I feel like that is the best way to let you know what it's like, other than obviously watching the vlogs that I have of actual life on the cruise ship. Just random little things that you wouldn't really think about, like not having a window, like not being able to have food in your cabin, like the crew parties that happen late at night after all the guests have gone to sleep. Like all these little things you wouldn't really think about. They are really what make the experience so special and so unique and unlike anything else in the world. So I hope you've enjoyed them. By the way, if you guys haven't subscribed, if you haven't liked the video, please do. It supports me and my channel so much, and it just means I get to share more of this with you guys, and I just love talking about it. I love sharing all this with you, so yeah, thank you so much for the support. It means the world. So the last thing I wanted to share is something called tender boats. So what these are, essentially, there's certain ports in the world where either they're not big enough for cruise ships to come in, or maybe the water isn't deep enough for the cruise ship to get in as well. The cruise ship basically can't pull up next to the land, at the place where you can just hop off and walk away. What they need to do is have tender boats. Essentially, they're lifeboats that get pulleyed down, so they are actually, well, kind of. Sometimes the ship will use their own lifeboats that they have stored on the side of the ship, and they'll just pulley them down, and then that's what you'll get in, and it'll take you to land. Other times the port will have their own tender boats that they will just use. They'll toddle off, meet you at the cruise ship. You kind of come out this door on the side of the ship, jump in the boat, and then they take you to land. So either way, it's always really, really safe. Actually, that is the one that gets really rocky. That is the part that I would get seasick on a lot, because it's such a smaller boat and it would be so rocky. Oh my gosh. But normally not on there for very long, normally like 5-10 minutes. And that means that you're able to get to a lot more places, because if you could only stop at the ports where the cruise ship fits, you'd be missing out on some really, really special, unique locations and countries and cities. So that is a really, really cool thing as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. If you are a cruise ship crew member or guest, or you've been on a cruise ship before and have another fun fact to share or a cool story to tell, I would love to see them in the comments. Lots of love, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.